Welcome back, everyone, to Three Astrologers discussing the royals and their astrology. I am back again with Kelly and Mo, and we are doing part 2 of our little, predictions for several members of the royal family. So last time we did Prince Andrew, we did Prince Charles, I believe, we did the Queen, and we also did Ghislaine Maxwell. This time around, we're going to focus on the younger generation, which is Prince William and Kate, as well as Prince Harry and Meghan. And just looking at their natal charts, their solar return charts, and taking a look at what we think might be coming ahead for them in 2022. I think we're also going to be looking at their wedding charts too, and their solar return charts for that, just to see what their marriages might be facing in the year ahead. Right. So, ladies, before we get started, anything you want to add that I might have missed? Or do you want to get straight into it?
Yeah, just if you need a refresher on what solar returns are or perfections, just check out part 1, because we will just be hopping right into it. So if you need like a little mini reminder, you can go back to the first video and like we talk about it a little bit, like transits and what's the difference between that and a solar return and all that kind of stuff. So
we'll try to refresh as we speak about these things, but like Kelly said, you can always go to our previous videos for more in-depth analysis for some of these charts and the things that we talk about and the techniques that we use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've already done we've already done a breakdown too of everyone's natal, if you want more natal stuff, for sure.
Yes, yes. So we've done the natal, I think, of pretty much all the major players in this family tree. So today we should just dig a little bit deeper into what we think might be coming their way. Yeah. So I think we're going to start with Prince William.
No. Let's start with Kate.
You want to start with Kate? Okay, sorry.
Let's start with Kate. She just had a solar return.
So Kate just had her birthday this past January 9th. So she has started a brand new year in a brand new house. She just turned 40 years old, and 40 is a 5th house year in the natal chart. So I guess maybe we should annotate some of this stuff so people can keep up with us to see what we are looking at. So Kate is having a 5th house here. The 5th house having to do with what? Children, creativity, the arts, entertainment, pleasure, what else? Sex, the lack thereof of sex too can come up through the 5th house. So those are going to be the major themes for her this year. The ruler of her 5th house, since she has Sagittarius on the cusp of the 5th house, is Jupiter. And she has Jupiter next door Scorpio in the 4th, right? So anything to talk about that ruler of the 3rd, or the 5th, I should say. Her children are next in line for the throne.
I mean, that there is that, but I think there's also like this idea of like thinking about where she's living and paying more attention to her private life. She was already doing that in like the previous year, where she was going through like whatever Mars was doing. So like Mars in her chart is in the 3rd, right? Which is the dispositor of that Jupiter. And so like maybe the worst of the drama for her was over in terms of like anything that was going on behind closed doors with parents, like with family. And in terms of, I see the fact that in her previous year, I would say certain elements of the media, like more of the gossip fodder type stuff, lives in the 3rd house. And I feel like she's gonna get a lot of reprieve from that because, instead of being in a Mars ruled year, she's moving into a year ruled by a benefic. So that's going to be a little helpful for her.
Although Mars still in charge of that Jupiter.
Mars is still in charge of that Jupiter.
Yeah.
She's technically in a 4th house Scorpio Mars year from the sect light, which is her moon, because she's a night chart. So technically Mars is still kind of there, but like for the most part, she's getting a lot better of a deal than she was like last year, I would say.
Do you think she's going to move?
Oh, it seems likely. Like, and I
Yeah.
think that, you know, concerns about protecting the children or like themes like that, well, like she's going to like think about like owning property or her relationship to land and property because of her children, if that makes sense. Or even just doing more like, if you hear about her like taking on like a big renovation project, because whenever I see like fifth house, fourth house overlays, there can be a lot of like renovation to like beautify a home or like
garden.
You know, she likes she likes gardens and arts, right? So like I wouldn't be surprised if something like that came up.
For sure.
The good thing though about this Jupiter year is that typically this Jupiter is not talking to Mars or to Saturn this year. In the chart, so that's helpful. And Jupiter does speak to Venus, as you can see over here. Now, Venus in her chart rules over her midheaven. So I'm wondering how much of this will her reputation improve through her children, the arts that she does based upon this dynamic, right? Because I feel like her reputation took somewhat of a hit over the past year, especially in the aftermath of the Oprah interview with Harry and Meghan. They seem to be pushing her forward quite a bit as like the charm offense. But how lucky that's been, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what? It's good that you bring that up because I see that Mercury retrograde, Venus is retrograde in her chart, but like Mercury is like conjunct like that Venus and also squaring the Jupiter as well. And so I see that, you know, Mercury does rule, you know, her skills, her assets, money, the second house, but also like, you know, the things she earns from her reputation, her networks, certain elements of the media, like which do fall in the 11th house. And so like, I do think that this is going to be a year where she is doing a lot more art projects or like even putting the kids out there more so that like, I don't want to say it's meant to rehabilitate her image because those planets live in the 7th house of her partner. I think it's going to serve the purpose of making William look good. Because let's be honest, he's the one who needs with the way that some of the articles have come out. Like there was an article that came out like I think a couple of weeks ago or even this last week where it was revealed that William didn't even want to do the garden event with Harry and he only did it because Kate like figured something out. And it's just like, while that makes Kate look good, it doesn't speak well to like William's behavior. You see what I'm saying? Like, so they're going to do all these things to show how she is a good influence for William, which might make her image look good. But I'm not sure how well that reflects upon his image.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Anything else to add about Kate's chart, natally? No?
I don't think so.
Okay. So let's take a peek at her solar return chart. If I can do that. Here we go. So her solar return chart, remember that Jupiter is in charge of her year still. So, oops. Oh no, I don't think I can annotate anymore. I keep losing it. But Jupiter is in charge still, and Jupiter actually is a little bit stronger in this chart for her, right? Because now Jupiter has moved into Pisces.
Yeah.
Right. And Pisces is her natal 8th house, correct? Okay. And so who is Jupiter talking to in this chart?
Yeah.
So he definitely speaks to Mars in Sagittarius. He's not speaking to Saturn, who's right next door. And Jupiter is also talking to Venus over in Capricorn too. So there's some irritations via Mars, but Venus is lending a hand as much as she can from her retrograde state and also pretty much burnt up by the sun.
Oops.
She's
trying.
She's really trying. You know what? Like, I feel like the Sun Venus conjunction, just because like all of that is like sitting with her like natal sun and everything. And you know, the midheaven is like.
I think Mo froze.
Ah!
Froze.
You have to stick with us through Mercury retrograde.
Yes, it's Mercury and Venus retro. So, things are a little bit choppy right
The
now.
fact that you have like even just
Ah.
You
looking
have to
at
go
this.
back. You have to go back.
Okay.
You froze.
Oh,
You
sorry.
froze.
Hello. Sorry. Hello. Okay, my bad. Okay, this is what I was saying. So the midheaven is like a highlighter, and it's highlighting her sun in the 6th house. The return Venus is also highlighting that sun, which is the sun is her chart ruler, so it represents her. And when I think about this, like looking at how these planets sit in the return, it's almost like she's trying to carry the monarchy on her back, right? Like she's trying to carry the success and longevity of the monarchy on her back, literally. And like like there's something very like Capricorn like about that Sun Venus conjunction energy. And it's even triply loud because her natal ascendant falls in the 4th whole sign house of this chart. And so I think there's an element of like her really doing her best to like try to like hold the monarchy together while all these like difficult things are threatening to pull it apart.
I think you can add in that the moon too. That's a struggling moon. I'm sorry, but like an Aries moon to me, I always think of like, whew, that's struggling. And it's like, that's what's behind the scenes, like the hidden pain, right? While the actual like stuff that's being projected out is like you're talking about the Sun Venus and the Jupiter. And I think also too the Saturn just being in the 10th, being like, okay, duty, got to do my job, got to do this. But underneath it's kind of like that duck, that's like underneath furiously like trying to fix things, but like on the top it's trying to look smooth, kind of thing, that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. I also wonder if there's an emotional desire to just get away from all this.
Yeah.
Like, what did she get herself into? Because it is a moon in Aries ruled by Mars and Sagittarius. And I'm wondering, like, if she's like, I need to get out of this. I need to break free. I need to run away and be on.
I wouldn't blame her.
Get away from this. Which again, like you said, we wouldn't blame her for.
I agree, especially because in the return chart, Uranus is right on the ascendant. Like, I think that, I mean, between the moon being in Aries and like Uranus being on the ascendant, I don't know. I get this vibe that Kate is probably going to step more out of her like comfort zone and try to be more of like a visible figure or visible fixture in the monarchy.
Is she going to do it, or is she going to get pushed into it?
You know what? I think she's going to do it.
Okay.
Like this might sound like crazy, but like I feel like she's going to do it. Like and it's going to be her wanting to do it. Because I'm also thinking about like the moon that moon in Aries is like really striking to me because it's also squaring her natal moon, which is in her natal 12th house. And I think it's interesting that the MCIC axis is like triggering her like natal full moon, her natal lunar eclipse in her chart. And so like there's going to be this need to maybe, I don't know, there's something about the moon placement in this chart as like her rebelling.
Froze again.
No.
Like some of the programming she went through so that she could assume this role, right? Like, oh, hello. Sorry. I said like, I feel like that Aries moon is her trying to break away from that like programming that she went through, because like, I know a lot of people say her mom basically coached her through the process of like bagging a prince. And it's like, okay, now that she's the role of being, future queen consort, like she can afford to let her hair down a little and like, step into that role a lot more than she's been allowed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll see if that ruffles any feathers, because I feel like they're still fighting, because they're calling her the future queen or whatever, queen consort to be, but there is a couple in line ahead of them that I feel is really weird, that they keep highlighting the younger couple versus the one that's actually stepping up right now or will be, which would be Charles and Camilla.
So no one wants to talk about Camilla. We don't talk about Camilla.
We don't. Dionysus not too. Sorry.
But also, I can't help but look at the MC and wonder, the midheaven there about a change in status. I feel like it's really being highlighted with the Sun Venus there too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, interesting. Like, okay, yeah.
I did have a
Like-
question for you guys about like the standalone chart. Like,
Mhm.
so you see how Mars is ruling the seventh house in this chart?
Mhm.
And it doesn't, like, I know that Sagittarius and Capricorn are antition to one another, so it's like a shadow aspect, but technically like they are still in aversion. And the
Mhm.
only thing giving that Venus and that Mars a relationship is the moon. What do you guys think of that?
Venus and Mars and the moon. Venus rules over the first and the what? The
The
sixth.
sixth.
Mhm.
Mars 7th and the 12th, and the moon is ruling over the third. I'm wondering how much of this has to do, because just looking at the houses that Venus and Mars rules over in this standalone chart. So Venus ruling over the sixth house, ruling over the first. So her 9 to 5, her work, her employees. I'm thinking about all her staff, for example. Mars ruling over the partnership, the marriage, and also all the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And then the moon ruling over the third house. So here I'm thinking that stuff is coming out into the world somehow.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Since this moon is governing over that third house, like you said, of gossip and what have you.
Mhm.
So how much of those themes that Venus and Mars are governing over are going to come out through this moon in the third?
Yeah,
Or
like
ruling over the third, I should say.
leaks from her staff, I'm thinking too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they have all these people around them, and I guess they feel protected, but at the same time, if these relationships aren't good, which I don't know if they are, especially if Venus and Mars are, in aversion, and Venus is not really doing too hot anyway, right? Kate's reputation did take a hit over the last year, but that's standard. Even if they don't talk about it much, it's happened. So I'm wondering if the staff or the people around them are really, getting a sense that there's blood in the water. This is a weakened family. Their power has been hit significantly, not only from people who left and got away, which is Meghan and Harry, but the person they chose to protect, which is Andrew.
But
So,
also too, with that, the Daily Mail versus Meghan case, where the Daily Mail lost, the royal family gave leave for a number of employees not to abide by their NDAs anymore. And I'm like, that sent a signal, didn't it? That like some of these NDAs may not be strict or may not be enforced, or who knows.
Or it might be more profitable for them to break the NDA.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. It might be, they might get more money breaking that NDA because the press is probably going to be willing to pay or put forward funds to get any kind of dirt. And I don't think the staff has any sense of loyalty either, to quite frankly.
I know, I definitely agree. And you know what? I'm thinking about all the leaks that have come out about like Kate's birthday, Kate this, Kate that, right? And I'm just seeing like Venus squaring that like that 12th house moon.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of the fact that, like it's funny that the IC is like the personal experience of like family life, whereas the fourth whole sign house like can be interpreted as like what the actual family experience is versus like her expectation for the year. And it's interesting how she's trying to literally carry the family image on her back while also trying to maybe suppress whatever's really going on in terms of like her experience. And like the moon is in that middle decan of Aries, like pretty close to the sun's exaltation degree, and I can't help but think like she's trying to like really rise above the family drama and like trying to like at her own expense like minimize the family drama so that she can I guess sort of it's like a double-edged sword. It's like on the one hand benefiting from the perks of being elevated suddenly, right? while also trying to suppress maybe her own irritation, agitation at like what's going on with the family. Meanwhile, the planet that represents her spouse, William, is trining that Mars with reception and is basically co-signing whatever bullshit is going on. Right? That's so loud to me.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see.
Oh, I forgot to talk about Jupiter, but like Jupiter will probably, just because it's like overlying her 8th house and it's like in the 11th, I won't be surprised if like you hear about Kate getting more titles, like more random titles this year or honors from the Queen. Yeah, so like that's probably going to be in the pipeline. And it's trining her natal Jupiter as well. So like, you know, some of those things might be extended to the children and like this, that, and other. So,
well, the other thing, I mean, we'll see if it shows up in William's chart. Remember, this is a 5th house year, and the fact that this Jupiter is in the 11th, and the 11th can definitely talk about other people's children, right? And the fact that this Jupiter is also trining her natal Jupiter from her 8th. So there might be some secrets coming out about children, whether hers or adjacent to hers, or somehow I feel like the family might be expanding through Jupiter.
But I don't.
Whether or not that's a good expansion,
yeah,
we don't.
No, I don't.
I'm not sure if there's going to be her children, but I think there might be additional children coming into the family through her family, which is, you know, her children are a big part of the year, right? So there's probably going to be some stuff about that. Anything else about Miss Duchess Catherine? All right, let's move on to Charles. William, there we go.
I'm always, what?
William Charles, what's the difference?
William Charles, what's the difference? Okay, can I annotate? Why do I keep losing that box?
I know.
Okay, so I don't know how to work Zoom anymore. Thank you. There we go. There is Mercury. So William.
I have a question. So for William, can we actually talk about, because he has one of those annoying like middle, like smack dab in the middle of the year birthdays.
Yeah,
we can do both, I think.
Okay, because he's starting in what, the 4th house here, right?
Yes.
Right now, yeah.
Yes, William at age 39. Oops. There we go. William at age 39 is in a 4th house year. So Jupiter is the ruler of his 4th house, since Pisces is on this cusp, and he has Jupiter and Scorpio back here in the 12th house next to the midheaven, right? So this is not a terrible year for him, because Jupiter is not dealing with Saturn or Mars this year in his natal chart, because they're next door, they can't be seen, and only has to deal with Venus this year, right? So technically, for William, his 4th house years in his natal chart are set up to be decent, technically, sort of. At least by how Jupiter is talking to Venus.
This is a good year, huh?
This is a good year. To put it into perspective, like, even though the Venus has more dignity because William's a day chart, like Jupiter is supposed to be the peak of like what he hopes to experience, like ever. Because Jupiter is his like benefic of sect. So it's like, this is supposed to be as good as it gets for Willie. Okay.
Woo!
The Venus opposition helps. I gotta say, it helps a lot.
She's not in the best of houses, but she's still strong.
No. And Jupiter, even though it's in the 12th, is technically angular by quadrant. So like, that's pretty decent. Yeah.
And Woods is talking about his family, right? His family, Jupiter representing the family, right? Or sort of, I guess, because his IC is actually in the 6th. So that's another thing to talk about. But through the 4th, we have Jupiter talking. So what is that saying about his family? There's some stuff that we just don't know about, right?
Yeah.
There might be some stuff that he doesn't know about.
Yeah.
To be frank. that's secret to him or unknown to him.
Well, okay. I'm gonna
Mhm.
I'm gonna disagree with that. Just because
Okay.
Jupiter also rules him, he's
Mhm.
probably the carrier of secrets.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Carrying some secrets. And this Jupiter
Mhm.
being retrograde and heading towards Pluto, these are some pretty heavy secrets.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a mutual application, right? Between Pluto. No, it's Jupiter heading toward Pluto.
Mhm.
So, okay. So Venus, what is Venus giving through the 6th? So again, house of employment, employees, injury, illness, health related stuff can come up here through here, subordinates. Technically, he should have this in spades in terms of people who work for him and his job, his work, but I'm not sure if that's actually the case, right?
Mhm. Well, when you get a too comfortable Venus, that can happen. Where
Yeah.
you take things for granted and you don't,
Mhm.
give people their
Yeah.
due because you feel like you're the king. Literally.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
definitely
Like,
something.
I also think about the fact that Venus rules like, the 11th house, which could be networks, like larger scale media, things like that. And I feel like, because this is a sign based opposition, there is tension between like William's objectives for like maybe the hidden power grabs that he wants to make at all cost. Because, there's some stuff going on in the family, um, which, I'm just thinking about like the lead up to his Mars ruled year. And I'm seeing, at least what I'm seeing here is like some kind of loss happens in the family that again elevates him because Jupiter, like the 12th house is a house of loss, right?
Mhm.
Jupiter rules both the family but also him. And I feel like there's this elevation of him through like changes and transformation in the family. Um, and I think that as he is elevated in terms of like his duties, his responsibilities, and things like that within the family, there's this tension between him and, the people he works for, or sorry, the people who work for him rather, and like his relations with the media and things like that.
Well, what we already know about his relationship to, I think it's his former communications person, which was Jason Knopf,
Jason Knopf.
right?
Mhm.
Who I guess had permission to break his NDA to speak out against his brother and sister-in-law, Harry and Meghan. And then also, was it Lord Rothmere, who is the owner of one of those newspapers, whether it's the Sun or otherwise, and they were working together. And, the whole thing with Harry and Meghan, the lawsuit, I think is coming up, right? Especially because of that connection through Venus and that 11th house. So people in his social group that also work for him, and also looking at, that very interesting tie between people who work in, the parliament or, in politics, who just go over to the royal households and continue doing that work, whatever that work might be, which to me is a little bit weird. Look, I just feel like there's some conflict of interest.
Ooh, you know what?
If, mm,
Another thing I could see is like there's like because technically like the IC is like ruled by that Venus, and I think of Charles. But Charles is also equally represented by that Jupiter. And I feel like it was during this like period like that William was in the fourth house year, like towards the end of last year, that it was revealed that Charles was up to no good, right? Like he was selling honors and titles like to all these like diplomats. And so I think there's like you can see like where William is being the Jupiter. You could also see how Charles is being both Jupiter and Venus for William. And it only feeds into the narrative, right?
Interesting. Yeah. So, anything to add about his natal before I guess we look at his solar return chart?
Can I talk about the fifth house year?
Let me
Or do you want to
peek
talk
if we're going to
about
cover. So I can't remember if I actually put the fourth house year for him. think I want to put the 5th. No, I think I
Okay.
put both.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh wait, this one's 2021, 20 and not 2021. This one.
Uh-oh. Okay, so let's do the 5th house first then.
Okay, let's do the
I
house
keep
first.
losing control of my charts.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're looking at his 5th house year first.
Okay.
Let's
So
actually talk
wait.
about the 5th house from the natal first, because I think there's a lot there. Okay,
Okay.
so what's funny for William is that like he's going into a Mars year, which because he's a day chart is like the worst it's going to get for him.
Yeah. He's going from the best to the worst.
Yep.
He
So
gets whiplash.
moving from Jupiter to a Mars year,
Mhm.
and his
Mhm.
Mars is not in the best of conditions, right?
No,
And it's
not.
also next to a planet that's not very forgiving,
Mhm.
right?
Um,
Saturn next to Mars is
it's
automatically
next to an
like, ooh.
OP Saturn. That Saturn is overpowered. Okay. And I find it telling, right? So for one, Mars is like in his house of like networks, media, connections, like the things he hopes to earn from his reputation, right? Mars is not happy in Libra. It's conjunct a very overpowered Saturn. And what does Saturn represent in William's chart? Siblings, because it rules the Aquarius third, but also his like skills, talents, and resources, which rule the second. And I don't know, like I feel like the intensification between the conflict between him and Harry is going to get louder. The 5th house also has to do with his pleasures, his children, things like that. The 3rd house also has to do with gossip, neighbors, things like that. And you see where this is going already, like given some rumors and like things that have been floating around for the past couple years.
Yeah.
Well, and Mars also rules his 12th house of secrets. So
So 5th house things, again, children, creativity, pleasure, sex. I would think love affairs, right? Because the 5th house is not necessarily where we commit. The 5th house is not the marriage partner. That's like the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the mistress, whoever that might be. Your consort, your lover. So, you know, the fact that I don't know if he has the best of luck picking the best lovers for himself.
yeah.
Especially with that Mars and Saturn. So maybe that's what we're seeing the story that he may not get to be with the person that he actually loves, possibly, which is interesting. Right?
It's also interesting,
We'll
yeah, that Mars is near his daddy, right? Isn't Saturn daddy? So like literally almost like following your father's footsteps kind of vibe.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting because if you think about like when the rumors about him and Rose Hanbury, amongst other people, really started coming out, allegedly. You know, he was going through his closing, his opening Saturn square. It was also his nodal return, I believe. Yeah. And so I don't know, like I feel like we're just getting to this weird stage where things are starting to I guess culminate is like not quite the word, but yes, culminate. And so if you thought those rumors were going away, they're not. They're not.
unlikely at this point.
You know, this is a preview of just more to come, if anything, right?
And but we see that also happening in Kate's chart, right? So the houses that we spoke about, you know, involving her Venus and her Mars and the moon. And I think we're seeing that doubling up again through William's chart, right? So I would just say from an outsider's point of view, it's just like doing what they did or allegedly did to their brother and sister-in-law opened up the gates for the same to start happening to them via the press and their staff, which is what I think we're starting to see in the chart, right? There's no loyalty to protect them at this point. It's kind of been eroded, I would say.
Yeah.
Ooh. Anything else about this chart?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Do we want to look
I-
at the fourth house here really quick?
Sure.
quick, yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let's pull up that chart. Let's go to William. And let's look at his
Look,
progress.
we're getting behind the scenes.
I know.
Behind the scenes.
All right, he's still in the fourth house here, right? Right now?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
For another like 6-ish months or so. Yeah.
So why is it giving me
Why is
2020?
it doing 2020?
Mercury
Oh.
retrograde. Weird things are happening. Give me a second.
Mhm. So funny.
Uh,
2020 solar fire. You're drunk. Go home.
current. Okay, let's try now. Okay,
Oh, that
here we
makes
go.
more sense. Yeah,
Yes.
there we go.
Okay, so from the fourth house here, looking at his natal. Oops, is that wrong? Where all my charts go? That's
I
weird.
think it's the bottom one.
Now it's the bottom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because we just added it. Wow,
Anyway.
this looks a lot like the current solar return that Kate just.
Although
switched
it
into.
says New York City.
Yeah, everything's screwed up, guys.
Because I was looking
Give
at
me a
that and I'm
second.
like,
Last
Right.
time.
I don't think so.
Turn. Let's do natal.
Natal.
There we go. And current, correct?
Yep.
It should be, but you know.
Yes, here we go.
Okay.
Okay,
Woo!
that looks correct.
Much better. Okay.
Ooh, look
That
at
was a
that
lot.
sun. Look at that sun. That is
Okay,
a sun
so-
that's coming into prominence.
So fourth house here, ruled by Jupiter, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
There's our
Jupiter
Jupi.
is over here in Pisces.
Yes, and it
Right.
just stationed that day.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Fun times.
What else is happening? So Jupiter in this chart doesn't see Saturn because Saturn's next door. Okay, that's great.
Mhm.
Jupiter doesn't see Mars because Mars is in Leo. Wonderful, that's great. Who does Jupiter actually talk to is Venus
Mhm.
Sun
in
and
Cancer
moon.
on the ascendant, right?
Yeah, this is more of this is as good as it gets for him, right?
Yeah.
That's that
Yeah.
repeating pattern, like until June of 2022. Like, this is as good as it gets for you, brother.
Literally. No, I'm glad we looked at this because I think it's funny how the midheaven in this chart is actually overlaying his natal fifth.
Mhm.
And so I wonder if some of the stuff that he got up to in this last year will start to come under scrutiny when he moves into the fifth house here.
Mhm.
Well,
It's
and
possible.
you notice where the moon is in the fifth house.
Moon in Scorpio.
That's just
right?
that repeating pattern again. The things that you do, in the fifth house stuff coming to prominence.
Oh yeah, and it's ruling the chart.
It is. It is. And I'm sorry, but that sun is just so in your face, like in the first house, where I'm just like, so it goes from his natal eighth to, the solar return first. And that's like, to me, just like, wow, a real change in status coming before the end of his solar return in 2022.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mhm.
Especially because the Venus retrograde and stuff is hitting like the return Venus, and like Pluto was opposite that Venus as well. So it just feels really loud.
It was real loud.
Well, just thinking about what was happening over the course of this fourth house year, since he's still halfway through it, right? So I think his year kind of would have started out, at least publicly for us, with him, with the statue dedication with him and his brother, because I think that would have been right after a lot of this stuff in July, I think, roughly. Okay.
Yep.
So, Cancer rising, his mom is a Cancer.
Mhm.
Or was a Cancer, so a lot of emphasis on her influence on him, and remember, he looks so much like her, and yada yada yada. But I feel like some of that shine is starting to wear off, especially because of that moon in Scorpio being in charge of the chart, right? Because especially this year, I started to hear a lot more of Harry being Diana's legacy versus William, and that his behavior was opposite or in opposition to what her values were.
You know what? I see that, like, I could see like the sibling like rivalry, resentment, because like the third house ruler is that dignified Mercury in the 12th,
Retrograde.
conjunct the North Node. Yeah, I know. And it's just like all this attention being paid to, the sibling who, is exiled or like in a foreign
abroad,
space.
across the sea.
Yeah.
So we see the 12th house coming up a lot when people are abroad or away, isolated, off in the distance. So little brother is doing well.
Look at that aversion. Look at that aversion between the moon, which is very unhappy, and like Mercury, which is pretty happy. The only thing giving them a relationship is the aspect that Mercury they both make to Saturn. And Saturn is the spouse in this case. So again, I think even in this chart, we can see that Kate is taking ownership of the legacy and really trying to, again, carry the monarchy on her back, maybe to her detriment. But like, you see how Saturn's also like, you see there's that Moon Uranus opposition, and then the Saturn's like at the apex of that T square. So it's almost like, wow, no, this is loud.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what would this kind of say? If the moon is kind of representing him in a way through this chart, there's a change and some sort of change coming in from Uranus, right, across the way, and then also the pressure from Saturn. So is it the relationship of the marriage that's creating the tension, or is it the changes in his social groups or the people that he's spending time with that is radicalizing him, possibly? Is it both?
Both.
Well, and also Saturn in the 8th, you got to think inheritances, right? But also death and what happens when your status changes because of a death. And then you have new responsibilities that put pressure on your existing relationship. Because Saturn also rules his spouse. So, yeah.
Ooh, anything else about this chart?
I will say that with the Jupiter thing, I think it's interesting how like aren't he and Kate supposed to go to like the US for some tour? Before,
is that still gonna happen?
I don't know.
But
I haven't heard anything else about
I feel
it.
like there's some of that, and then like also I feel like whatever he's trying to do with like the Earthshot prize and all this other stuff like is captured by that Jupiter.
When was Earthshot again? Was that November? October?
It was like November,
September?
October, I think.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Was it before or after the Sussexes came to New York? I can't remember.
After.
So probably November, I would think, roughly, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It didn't really get as much attention as you would think an event held by a prince would get. And I don't know the names of the winners of the event, which is also problematic. I heard so much about him and his green velvet blazer versus the actual participants and their work and what they were going to do for the environment, which I don't necessarily know if that's a great thing, right?
It's not.
No. So, yeah. Anything else about this particular chart?
Just going to highlight the IC in the 4th, which means maybe he's moving too.
Yeah. And the ruler of that
moves.
IC on the ascendant, like look at that, moving, relocating.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. All right. Well, let's clear. Now I might have to restart my charts. I think Solar Fire puts a limitation on what I can show at one time.
Okay.
So are we going to do the wedding chart?
Oh, did you want to do 2022 for William or no?
Yeah, let's do 2022 for him. Before we, yeah. Oh, wow.
So 2022 would be starting his 5th house year.
5th house.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is a
And
Mars.
his 5th house is ruled by Mars.
Which is in the 8th, which is Interesting.
Look at that.
So we have Mars in Aries, which is a
Mhm.
big step up from his natal Mars in Libra, right? In fact, they're
Yep.
opposed to one another.
Yep.
Yep.
So this is definitely going to get some attention, I think. Right? Mars does see Jupiter. So Mars is there to buffer whatever foolishness that Mars might get up into.
It's also squaring
Um,
Pluto.
and then we have
Or
Saturn
sextile
and
Saturn, but
no help from Venus this year because
Mhm.
Venus is right next door in Taurus.
Interesting to see he also has Moon in Aries, same as Kate.
yeah,
Mm.
they both have the Aries moon in their return charts. I think that's
One in the
very
12th and one in the
interesting.
8th.
Ooh.
That is not good for harmony in the home or otherwise.
I mean, let's talk about the fact that like the moon is ruling the 11th house, which has to do with like groups of people. Like it could have to do with like maybe like parliament or the media or like some other like group or body, right? And all of that is
Mhm.
squaring the sun. Um, it is conjunct Jupiter, which like I think is interesting because Jupiter again rules like his family, but it also rules his partner.
Mhm.
Um,
And also you see again the sun midheaven conjunction, same as Kate.
mhm. Yeah.
So that's a
And what's
definite
nice is,
double change in
yeah,
status, you know?
definite change in status, especially,
Mhm.
you know, the sun is conjunct with a lot of fortune as well. Like, so it's really giving like elevation in status, change in role.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
just thinking back to what we discussed the last time with the charts of Charles, the Queen, and Andrew, again, this is kind of pointing to someone is stepping down of some sort, which is likely to be the Queen herself, whether that is a step down to let go of control or a step down from this life into the next.
Mhm.
Because I think we're seeing a theme within the family in that regard, that there's going to be changes in status.
Mhm.
And especially for the heirs, this is likely for them to be shifted upwards in their heirdom. I guess. I don't know what to call it. Their heir status is getting an upgrade.
Mhm.
You know what I do want to comment on the fact that Mars rules like the third house, which is not just siblings, but like cousins, extended family. And it's dignified in the eighth. The South Node is also moving through that like return third. And I can't help but wonder if like there's going to be very active conflict about who gets what, whose title is what, whose role is what, which will lead to the exposing of secrets.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
It could be somewhat of a messy title fight
Yeah, I think it's
or
also
inheritance
whoever
fight.
said moving is again in this chart because
Yeah.
William's ascendant is really closely conjoined the IC in this chart.
Yeah, I'm seeing moving again. So I'm like, oh, you're gonna move and then have to move again.
Yeah.
If you're moving palaces though, and people are kind of struggling over who gets to be Duke of whatever, like that could happen.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I also am kind of like iffy because like technically the midheaven is conjunct his descendant, right?
Mhm.
Which means that there are big changes coming in relationship.
Mhm.
And I see that Mercury is returning to the same sign.
Almost to the degree, right?
Almost to the degree.
Oh wow.
Mhm.
And it's worth noting that Mars retrograde is going to aspect all of these points. And
Mm.
Mars is his time lord. So you see where I'm going with this? Like,
Yeah, and
it's
sometimes Mars can have that cutting,
yeah,
like scissors, sharp objects can be Mars. So also the severing of ties can come through Mars as well. And like you said, that Mars retrograde is going to be going through his natal seventh. So his marriage is definitely, there's some stuff coming up around, whether his marriage or any other kind of contracts or agreements he has with other people. It can mean a lot of
Yeah.
people.
That's true. Yeah. As an heir to
Yeah.
the throne, you've had a lot of partnerships and a lot of relationships over the years, you know, especially as you get closer and closer to power, like people want stuff from you. So it'll be interesting to see which ties he cuts and which ones he keeps.
Yeah, and I think there'll need to be like a cautiousness with which he does that, because there are people waiting in the wings to expose him if they don't like get what they want. And I feel like that's where, like, you know, the seventh house ruler being conjunct the moon, but also sextiling that Mercury comes in, because it's almost like whoever that seventh house person, whether it's like, it could be Kate, but it could be whoever else he has agreements or contracts with, being like, I have the media in my back pocket. I need you to create opportunities for me, or else I will go to them, like, expose you or whatever, right?
Especially the eighth house, like taboo stuff in there, babes.
And, you know, and just remembering that that eighth house does fall into his natal fifth. So again, secrets surrounding his personal pleasures. I think they'll, and it's really funny that Mars is in control of his fifth house, because there was a recent thing that came out, I can't remember, a week or two ago, where he was in the news because there was rumors, or I think it was a Scottish journalist was talking about he allegedly has a thing for dogging, which apparently in English slang, dogging is apparently when you and your friends get together on estate grounds and watch each other having sex, like from a distance, like you're like through binoculars. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like
but,
hunting slash sex sort of thing. But the thing is, like, Mars showing up as like that kind of hunt and dogging, Mars relating to dogs. So we might hear more stories around his escapades and dogging.
Look, it's his chart ruler, like also in the return eighth. Like, I mean, he's implicated whether he likes it or not, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, like, I think it's interesting that Venus is also returning to like close to her position in his chart. She's with the North Node, and you know, Venus in that last decan of Taurus is really giving like taking out an insurance policy, but through the form of like forming strategic relationships with people. And, you know, because I would say certain elements of like what is published about you, but also like the law is captured by that ninth house. And so I'm wondering if he's going to try to become more politically influential during this period as well.
Now, will it be successful? I don't know.
Well, this is definitely more a struggle year. So I would say last year was as good as it gets. This year is the struggle.
Yeah, because he was also pretty invisible, like compared to like, I felt like I didn't hear as much about William as I did about literally everybody else.
Except when Twitter went alight about his rumored affair. And that was it.
Yeah. Well, because in his third house year, he was all over the place because he was doing that PR post Oprah, and it was not working out at all. Like everything that he put out just was received really badly. Then his fourth house years came about and things started to settle a little bit. I think, like you said, he became a little bit quieter, right? Which would make sense. But like now things are coming back out about some of the scandalous stuff, right? So they are using Kate pretty heavily to just don't look at William.
Smooth it over.
I mean,
Smooth
it's
it over,
really
Kate.
sad. It's really sad how in both, like, it showed more in like the chart that will be in effect like until June. But like it still kind of shows in this chart where like literally they're like putting out Kate out there as like, you know, the rock of the monarchy, like using her Capricorn tenacity like against her, and like making her the rock of the family when it's clear that the ship is sinking. Like, I think that in William's return, I don't see that it will work. Right? It's not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, even with Kate's, you know, campaign to make her look good and whatnot, there's not a lot of substance behind it, unfortunately, right? When they were talking about her birthday, you know, oh, she's perilously thin and she never puts a foot out of line, but there was no conversation about her work or any of her charities or any of the things that she's accomplished in the 10 years that she's been a Duchess. It's really been about her looks and being pretty in dresses at this point.
I mean, not even
Which-
that. It's just like it's like, oh, she's not like outspoken like Meghan. She doesn't work. Like that's literally it.
Yeah.
It's not even about her looks anymore. It's like, look, she's like the proper like white Anglo-Saxon whatever. Like
She's an
ideal
English
of-
rose. She's an English rose.
is she?
Is she? She is. That's her. She is the proper English rose who's supposed to be the Duchess we can all stand behind. But there's not a lot to back that up in practice of any sort, which is why Meghan was such a big problem for them, right? She made these two look like they haven't been doing anything for the past 10 years.
Because they weren't doing anything. So
and now they have to do something because the palace is on fire.
Yeah.
Andrew has to face the jury, apparently. We'll see if he does. The queen doesn't have any more goodwill to give at 9 to 5, right? She's like getting ready to peace out.
yeah, and Charles is pretty much like running the show. So it's great.
Yeah.
Remind me again which house you look to for uncles. So like for where Andrew would be in his natal. I forget.
Technically, you could throw that in the third, but like uncles. Like how granular do we want to get here? Like,
Well, I was just wondering, is there like a house? Is it like the brother of your father? So do you look to like?
Let's see.
I would say the third, the 6th, or the 12th count, depending on how you want to look at it. If we're doing derived houses.
Because I was, yeah.
Sorry, one second, guys. Let me check my handy dandy rulership book.
Which one are you using?
This is Rex E. Bill.
Oh, Bill's.
I
Okay.
love that book.
Yeah.
So aunts and uncles from the mother's side in a man's horoscope, and from the father's side in a woman's horoscope is a 6. So would it be the 12th in a man's chart?
Yeah, because it's
I'm gonna go trad on this because the 4th house is traditionally the father. 4th house is, I'm sorry, the 10th house is traditionally the mom. So if you want to go derived houses, I would say 6th house is uncles because it's siblings of parent, siblings of father.
Yeah, siblings of dad.
I go 6th.
And
so
this
Taurus.
In this book, they're saying from the father's side in a man's horoscope, it's a 12th house.
Okay.
So for him, that would be what? Scorpio?
So they're using the 10th house as dad then, yeah.
So either or, 6 and 12 for him, that would still be that Scorpio Venus. Or
yeah.
Taurus, which where the eclipses are going on.
That's where the eclipse is. That's what I was like trying to figure out is like, are the eclipses involved in this? Because the way that's lining up, because his natal, that would be right, like right through the 6th, 12th.
Yeah. So let's say for example, it was the 6th. Let's say the 6th house is his mother's side of the family. For example, his aunts on his mom's side. That already does make sense for William's chart, in my opinion, because there's better PR against the Spencer for the Spencer family right now than there is for the Windsors. And also the South Node is going to be going over the Scorpio side. So I think that makes sense for William's chart.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking right now, like in the solar, it's like going to be going through the 3rd and 9th, right? Those eclipses. And I'm like, ugh, that's a lot of media. That's a lot of media. That's all kinds of media. That's books, that's newspapers, that's print, that's everything.
Giving Andrew gets exposed.
Yeah.
But also I think the whole family getting drawn into it.
Yeah, I see that.
Well, there's a time for everything.
On the wedding chart, I gotta see it.
Okay.
Right, let's see if we have the wedding chart up here. Okay, so now we're looking at William and Kate's wedding chart. So this is April 29th, 2011.
Which we did do a full breakdown of this before. Yeah.
So definitely check out those videos. So do we want to focus on the house this wedding or the entity of their marriage is in, if we're going
Yeah.
to use this like a solar return chart?
It's coming.
How
12.
long is their marriage?
No,
So they are going, so they just did 10 years last year, so they're still in the middle of an 11th house year, I believe,
And then they switch into the
right now.
well,
12.
they're wrapping up their 11th house year.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Switch
and
into
now
ahead.
they're going to be going into the 12th house year come April.
Oh, the
Ooh.
eclipses are going to be very loud.
But also ruled by that moon in the 8th, which is the house of loss. Again.
So the 11th, wait, okay, so the 12th house is ruled by the moon, right? And
Huh?
the 11th house is ruled by Mercury, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so is this their first, this is going to be their first 12th house year
Mhm.
for them. So this is their first pass through their wheel. Every 12 years, we start wrapping around and we begin to do the story in repetition. But this is the last two houses for their marriage. So in a way, we can kind of see the winding down as they start to get ready to move into what their first house will be, whatever it might be, whether they're going to stay together or not. We don't know yet.
Mhm.
So,
I have a lot of thoughts because if you think about like this year, Mars and Jupiter will conjoin pretty close to the midheaven of this chart,
Mm.
which is interesting.
Mm.
Uh,
Also, yeah.
yeah, it's also
Also
a
having-
return in that
Mhm.
sense of their Mars Jupiter conjunction in their wedding chart.
mhm.
Mm.
And I wonder what's going to come up around children, just because Jupiter does rule children in this chart.
We keep seeing it over
Yeah,
and
it's like
over again.
children. But
Children.
I'm not sure that Kate is having any more children. I'm not really getting that impression. But
I don't get that impression. So again, it's his children. It's somebody's children. It's children that may or may not have a status in the line of succession, right?
Mhm.
I did want to comment on that moon as well, because the moon is in that last decan of Pisces, which does have connotations of sacrificing for the greater good. And so I'm wondering if there are some like secrets and stuff that will start to well up to the surface, but to maintain the illusion of the happy family, maybe people going along with things.
Isn't it also the spicy decan?
It's very indulgent, very
Spicy.
very.
Mhm.
And they're in the 12th house here, right? So there's going to be this eclipse in their 10th.
Well, they're
literally.
Yeah, they're in the
the
11th.
day-
They're going to the 12th.
You know what? The eclipse that's happening in Taurus, pretty close to the sun of this chart. It's a solar eclipse. It's the day after, like the calendar day of the wedding chart. So it's April 30th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's actually that eclipse in Taurus, but Venus and Jupiter conjoin pretty close to that moon.
Mm.
And so I'm wondering if there's something that comes out about secret children or secret affairs or secret something, but to convince everybody that everything is okay, people will put on the image of like a united front. You know what I mean? Like something.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Well, remember that these eclipses are also going to be hitting the 4th and the 10th for this chart. So even though it's not involved with the MCIC, it's still affecting their home and family life and their status
They're public
out in the world as a couple. And although the South Node in Scorpio tends to be more of a draining aspect, what I've noticed with the North Node eclipses, sometimes it's not always positive because it's just amplifying whatever is there already.
Yeah.
Right. So even though this sun might be eclipsed on the positive north node end, it might just bring up whatever is hanging out there, whatever it might be, for better or for worse. So,
I
it's
mean,
going
you
to
know
be
what I
something.
could see, like, because I feel like Kate and William will be fast tracked to whatever their role is going to be. Like, there's going to be an elevation of them regardless that comes up with this eclipse. But like, I mean, just for the fact that like all this other stuff is going on, it's just like, okay, while they are being elevated, maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And it could involve like issues with children, issues with love affairs, issues with like media coverage of something that they don't necessarily want to get out. And, you know, that eclipse in Taurus seeming like, okay, yeah, they're elevated. Let's focus on this part now. But the kicker is that 2 weeks later, like in mid-May, there's that South Node eclipse in Scorpio, lunar eclipse. And it's being squared by the transiting Saturn, which is moving through their 7th house right now. And so I can't help but like, you know, while they are being elevated in a way or seeming like they've overcome some like drama and like get ahead of a narrative and like push an image or something, like I think around that time, maybe like 2 weeks later, realizing, maybe we can't like pretend that like everything is okay. Does that make sense? Like something happens that puts strain on like the commitment to like the delusion, right?
I mean, it's already showing, although people try to deny and say, oh, they're such a happy couple.
They
They're
have
so in love.
festive,
I'm just like,
festive glances, Janelle.
festive glances. That was the best that these reporters could come up with to make it seem as though these two are so in love and so on the same page. But unfortunately, their body language looks very different from that.
Look, the thing is, it's like, I don't think that, like, I agree with people who are like, marriage is kind of a business contract because it's like love and good feelings is nice, but like, that's not what keeps a relationship together. It's work. And it's like, you guys don't have to pretend that they are like so mad in love with each other. It's okay if they're not, right? That's fine. Just stop pretending that they're like, you know, over the moon about each other. Like, it's fine if they're not. Like, especially given the position that they're in, like, they have a duty to fulfill. And if that's the nature of their relationship and it's working for them, fine. Totally fine.
That's not what they want to portray. It seems like they need to have the fairy tale.
Well, it's not, and that's fine. It's not a fairy tale, and that's okay.
It's but I wonder if Harry and Meghan's relationship has been so disruptive in that it showed that it could have been a fairy tale for a lot of these people had they chose partners that they actually liked or liked and could do the job.
Step one, marry someone you like.
Marry someone you like.
Step two, get
make
someone
sure they
who
want to
actually
do the
wants
work.
to do the job. Like,
step three, profit.
Literally.
So these are the things I think are coming up, unfortunately. Right.
And what's that return chart looking like? I'm curious.
Okay, let's take a look. Return chart. Sorry. There we go. So solar return chart. This is for their 11th house here, right? So this would be the Mercury rule here.
Mercury, yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Right away, we can see that Mercury is not really talking to the Mercury in their wedding chart because he's next door in the sign of Taurus. So things going to plan probably did not go to plan, or there were distractions and delays this year when it came to their 11th house year through that marriage chart. But
that Saturn.
He's right next to Venus. He's talking to Mars, talks to Saturn and to Jupiter.
It's busy Mercury.
Busy Merc.
And it's falling into the 10th house of the wedding chart. So is this the idea of their social group, their friend group, you know, their associates being more prominent this year, right? We heard a lot about Jason Knopf. We heard about Lord Rothmere. We're hearing about the people that they socialize with. Simon Case, all of these people who are popping up in the news that are part of their circle too have been pretty prominent, I would say.
Yeah, but I will
So
say
far
that
this
the
year around
Mercury's technically enclosed by the benefics, because if you look at the degrees, it's like separating from Venus to apply to Jupiter.
Okay.
And that's like, so it's almost like whatever Mercury's agenda is for the year is somewhat protected by whatever Venus and Jupiter are trying to do. And in the case of their chart, like having to do with like maybe securing like certain assets and things like that, like through, or like certain titles or roles for their future, just given that, you know, the queen is going through this period where she's probably we're going to see less and less of her for like whatever reason, because, you know, she's reached that stage of her life. But also like, so I feel like some of that's represented by Venus. It's like, okay, like the natural progression. Like I see that also being the celebration of their 10-year anniversary of being married, like that Venus Mercury conjunction in Taurus in the 7th, and stuff like that. But like the Mars ruling this like return chart, being like not happy in Cancer also feels very loud. Yeah, it just feels like they're trying to like protect whatever like the family's like brand is almost, and it's almost like they're trying to justify like their marriage. It's like, look, we're like hurting and healing, and like it's almost like they're like projecting this image of like needing to lick their wounds after going through so much in the last year. Like I feel like that's what 2021 was very much about for William and Kate.
Okay. Anything else about this chart?
I want to see 2022.
Let's see. Let's clear this stuff up. And here we go. So this is for 2022.
Is this a moon year?
For their what?
This is the moon year.
So
in Aries? Not in Aries.
Moon. Again.
Oh.
There's a theme.
Aries moon will not go
Again,
away.
In the sibling house?
Highlighting.
Woo. Yeah, like again, I really feel like all these charts, especially with like the nodes moving through Taurus, are screaming like change and responsibility, being more visible, right? It's like really screaming.
That this Pisces stellium they have here is going to be falling into what, the 6th house of
the 8th house.
8th house? 8th house. Okay. 8th house of their wedding chart. So again, maybe there'll be more inheritances, right? Jupiter and Venus in here, and they're super powered.
But Mars, so a sense of loss or cutting, right?
Maybe even some sense of loss. Not maybe some deception or a sense of being deceived, possibly.
Committing to a delusion is like very much what it's giving, like projecting the image of like the happy family, the happy ending, whatever.
And also with Saturn in the 1st, it's like responsibility dropped in your lap. It's time to step up.
How do we feel about the moon fading? This is technically a new moon chart almost, right?
Balsamic moon chart, like definitely giving closing out a cycle. And I do feel like some of their like, I don't know, when I see the moon in the 3rd, like being balsamic, but also like, so the moon is technically in her joy, which is awesome, but like she rules the 6th house of like work and employees. So like I can see this in 2 ways: the slimming down of the monarchy being ushered in by like William and Kate's role changing.
Mm.
Because like the moon is again in that that second decan of Aries, which is like, I want to be the exemplar. I want to like embody something important, right? And so like between Saturn being overpowered in that last decan of Aquarius, which really just wants to strip down to the bare essentials, and the moon like doing what it's doing, I really feel like the change in duties that these two are going to have as a couple will like foster or usher in the slimming down of the monarchy. Right?
Mhm. Or even to like
Mhm.
getting a new staff, right? Like if you
Mhm.
New
change,
staff, that
you
too,
know?
that
Yeah.
too. Purging of
Mhm.
staff.
Interesting. Well, we already know that staff and things like that's a pretty big deal for both of these people in their chart, right?
Mhm.
So they have to pick wisely if they're choosing at all,
Mhm.
if they have that choice, because I feel like their staff recently has been more of a hindrance than a help to them. But we'll see.
Does anyone know the degrees for the eclipses? I'm just wondering if that sun's getting eclipsed.
Like 10
10
degrees.
Yeah, pretty
10
close.
degrees,
Yeah.
The
25,
other one
2,
is
and 16.
25.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. That sun's
Yeah.
getting eclipsed in the 4th.
Big time.
So,
That's making me think moving
changes are
again.
coming.
Moving.
Moving.
Yeah.
Uranus right there. Also
So
getting
would that be them
eclipsed.
moving to a new, I know there's been a lot of talk about them moving in general, especially Kate and the children, but where else would they move to? There's so many properties.
Yeah.
Or will there be a change in those properties being available or not, right? Like the UK is not doing too well socially right now. Even though these people are living their best lives in their palaces, the rest of the country is really struggling.
Mhm.
And so there has been some pushback from people who are dealing with the government that's fairly corrupt and telling the public to do one thing. Oh, you have to isolate, you can't go to funerals, and the government is partying and having drinks and
Wine
what have you.
Wednesdays every day.
Right. And then I think I saw something with Kate's photographs where people are like, listen, people are going hungry, they're losing their jobs. Like, we don't want to see Kate in all her pretty dresses right now.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if there's going to be some changes in the country where what they thought was going to be given to them through inheritance or status because of their sequence up the ladder is now being questioned because people are like, no, we're not giving you that.
Well, also they were talking about perhaps turning some of the royal properties into places for people who do not have homes. So they could decide to do something like that.
For that, I would say we probably have to check the chart of the UK, most likely.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, I'm pretty sure they have a second house, 8th house Taurus Scorpio axis.
Yeah,
So
properties.
I think it's a Libra nation, Libra rising nation. So
no, it was
that
an
second
Aries
house.
rising. Aries rising. Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to check, but I do think there's going to be some issues around finances for the nation itself, which could really be a little bit dicey if you have heirs to millions and millions of dollars moving again when people are losing their homes and livelihood. That's all. So I would be very careful. So you might want to do that on the hush.
Mhm. Well, if everyone kind of moves up, I mean, that makes, potentially William and Kate being Prince and Princess of Wales at some point, which would get them a whole new set of houses,
We'll see if that happens, because I'm not 100% certain that William and Charles are not fighting.
Oh,
at the
they're
moment.
fighting.
And if Charles, but you know what? No title for you.
Yeah, because there's nothing
no
that
Prince
says
of Wales for you.
There's nothing that says he has to give William the title, but it's going to look real bad if he doesn't.
Yeah, but like I've been speculating, we've been speculating that Charles is laying a very interesting trap for William. It's like, oh, you have a bad temper, you don't have a good reputation. Why should I give you all this money and wealth? Right?
I mean,
when I can give it to your son.
Look, we saw that like what he did to his youngest brother, who's supposed to be the Duke of Edinburgh. Like we saw what he did. Like, you kidding me? Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see if they get what they think is due to them, or if it will be, you know, easy to get it. Whew. Anyway, on to Harry.
Harry.
Yes.
Harry.
Again.
Harry. So
he's
what
what,
is-
37?
37.
37.
So second house year.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Let's give Harry a new color. Let's make him green. He likes green. And here we go. So he is now in a second house year, and Aquarius on the cusp. So Saturn is the ruler of his year so far. So what have we seen from Harry so far this year? Money moves. He has like 3 jobs. He is all
He's
over the
building
place.
out
He's
his
working
network.
a lot.
He
He
really
is
is.
helping the organizations that he's associated with, right? His Saturn in the 11th, working or making money through the groups and organizations that he's with. They have made tons of money through being associated with him. So that's one thing that I think we've noticed right away. His second house year. I think I sent you guys a message. Look, money. There's the second house year. He's,
Second house year,
you know, making people
cash.
money, making the cash, right? What else is happening this year? This Saturn is pretty lonely, except for Jupiter. So this Saturn doesn't talk to Venus. It doesn't talk to Mars, but it does have a relationship with Jupiter, which is why I think so far this year for him has been fairly successful, right?
Well,
So Jupiter,
it's also opposing his moon, and it is like sextile his sun. So there is like some of that going on.
But I think it has been overall, you know, a quieter year from the Sussexes. So
yeah.
Well, as quiet as it can be with
Right.
a new baby.
Yeah. They're
A
busy.
new baby in the household. Yeah. Right. And the baby came during his first house year, right? Yes, because she was born in June. So all right.
Yeah.
Got it.
During his Jupe year. No, just Jupiter in the first.
So yeah, change in status. He's taken on a lot more responsibility, not only as a career person, but also as a parent too, I would say, with Saturn coming into the mix for this year. Right. Anything about this year we should talk about for him?
I mean, Harry does spend most of the year in this like second house year, though he does move into the third house year
In September.
in September. So again, because Harry's a day chart, like he's going, I mean, Saturn is like the nicer malefic. It's also his chart ruler. So like it's been working out for him. But you know, he will move into a year that's a lot more positive. So I think we'll start to see the, I guess, what benefits he's reaped from doing a lot of these group ventures with people, especially the last like 2 years.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
been
Like,
a big thing for him.
oh no, just like a building year.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of the stuff to build the empire, and then I think Jupiter will expand it, you know, where you lay the foundation.
And he has a lot on his plate, as far as I can think off the top of my head, right? He's with Better Up. He has the Invictus games. He has whatever projects he has with his wife, with his Netflix or Spotify. He's done work with Apple. So there's a lot. And then he also has a book coming out, or a memoir coming out. I don't know if that book comes out in his second or third house year, though.
House year, it comes out in November, I believe.
Yeah.
So
November
if it comes out in November,
2022.
it will definitely be his third house year, which would be very interesting.
Yes,
Right.
very interesting.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Anything else about this, Prince Harry?
No.
No. All right. Let's take a peek at our next chart. So this is solar return chart for 2021, so the end of the year. So this is talking about that second house year for him, right?
Well,
so Saturn being.
I was gonna say the loudest thing is like it was during this year that the book deal was announced, and like that ascendant is conjoined his sun, which is natally rejoicing in the ninth, And so I think it's very loud that he's writing his own like memoir, basically. And so this would be the year that he would be working on it and writing it.
Yeah, Venus in the third too.
Yep.
So
In Scorpio, digging out the dirt.
whoa.
Let's excavate.
Yeah.
Oh yes. We also have Mars and Mercury in the second house, right? We're seeing a lot of how he's making his money. It's almost like, I don't know if better up, there's something else is he involved in that's kind of like that venture capitalist kind of. I think him and his wife got involved with
I don't remember
some
the name,
group that helps people invest. Yeah,
Oh,
I can't
yeah.
remember the name. So if you're interested in investment and working with that stuff, I think they also got involved with that. So, so how's Saturn doing in his chart? We have Jupiter next door to Saturn. We have Mars by trine. We have Venus by square. So it's pretty busy. What else? Also, it's funny, his moon in Capricorn for the solar return chart would be in his first. So I wonder if he's really feeling kind of at ease with who he is, even if it's a Capricorn moon. It's
Well, he's
still
used to
nice
it.
to be feel. Yeah.
Well, I think it's also loud because it's like it's the second, it's like his year of being like a new dad, and like you know, the ascendant was in the fifth. And so like, you know, the moon does represent like his spouse natally. And so it could represent how like Meghan feels in general, like or what Meghan's going through.
Yeah.
You know, because it is a cat moon, like
I think he's breaking her back, to be honest.
Love it. Love it.
Yes.
Dad.
Yes. Yes. We love to hear it. We love to hear it. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else?
Yeah, no, he got his new jobs this year too, and so I see that Saturn being representative of like, you know, the new jobs that he got, like because it's squaring that Venus, like saying things about like his income and stuff. So
he's working hard.
Literally, that's gonna be him. Booked.
This is just like a little worker bee chart.
It is.
Yeah, but I think, you know, his chart enjoys being productive. I would say, right?
Well, look at that. Well, I mean, Virgo sun, he's going to love being of service and helping people and finding his niche and getting comfortable with who he is. Yeah.
And isn't this midheaven for him falling into his natal sixth?
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Busy.
Find out where you can, you know, be of service, plug yourself in and get to work.
And I like how his IC is in his natal 12th. So, you know, there's a lot of privacy that he's created for his family, which is what they really wanted, was the ability to say yes or no to things. You know, you can't see our kids until we're ready to, which worked out for them because, right, they released the photos for the Christmas photo thingy, and it was, you know, trended for like a day and a half, 2 days.
So
right,
cute.
where we got to see the kids.
The ginger, the ginger is strong.
The ginger is strong.
Very strong.
That cannot be denied.
It looks like both kids are getting the ginger.
I love it.
That's super cute. Anything else about Harry?
No, he's just gonna be booked and busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good.
He's a busy bee. Okay, who's next? I believe Miss Meghan. Meghan. So Meghan is also 40, right? So she is on her 5th house year. So what's Meghan up to this year? So 5th house year. It's ruled by Scorpio. So Mars is the ruler of her.
In that first, baby.
So she is she's coming out of her shell, I think, again.
And she's doing just fine.
And I think we saw that right away with her birthday, right? She did that 40 by 40 initiative when she asked people to mentor and to help and to things like that, other women, right? That was the first thing she did on her birthday.
I was gonna say that, like, again, like you have that signature of like, because she just became a mom again, like just before this year. I'm also like crazy convinced that like she and Harry are gonna pop out a third kid. Like, I'm sorry, it's just the way their charts are set up, like, and the way the eclipses are hitting. Like, if at some point, like this year, like, or later this year, like they announce that they're like pregnant again, like, don't be surprised. Because this
Well,
could be the year where that happens.
if you look at though her 2022 solar return, I might agree with you.
I don't know if we have that pulled up yet, but we'll see.
No,
Um,
I'm serious.
well, she
I
does
swear.
have Uranus in her fifth, so that can also speak to unexpected, pregnancies and also losses, right? So we know that she has lost a child so far. So anything can happen with Uranus, I would say, in that house position. And Uranus is getting eclipsed with the nodes going over it too.
I'm telling you, there's going to be a third baby Sussex. Like, I don't know how to, I know I'm putting it very, like, you know what? It'll make sense once we look at the wedding chart and like the return. But like, I swear to God, like for the fact that Meghan is like in this year where, that fifth house ruler is like in the first and is active, it's just so loud. Like, it's so loud. I can't ignore it. But now, you know what? I also wonder if it's like her creative stuff as well.
Yes. So we keep saying it could be either or. If it's not a baby, it's likely to be one of the various creative projects that they have percolating. Now, if I was them and I had to family plan at this point, I don't know if I would want another baby right now, right? They have said they only want 2. Now, we're not saying that they can't have more, but that's what they said. And on top of all the stuff that they have going on, to handle a third child on top of all the stuff, I don't know. But they have the money, they have the means. So I guess they can do whatever they want. But we'll see.
But you also see Mars
blow up on them.
Yeah, you also see Mars ruling the 10th. So I expect, and I'm hoping that we'll see more of them this year. I would hope. But, COVID being what it is, I don't know.
So far, whenever they do step out, they do get a lot of attention as usual. So Meghan, they've come out so far this year, right? Post baby, they came out to NYC, I think September, October, and then again in November. So there has been more creativity, more spotlight, more of them in the public eye so far.
Do events in California, please. Thank you.
It's too close to home, apparently.
Didn't they also do a lot of stuff for children? Like, I know, like, when they went to New York, they read for kids, and like, they went to New York another time, and like, or maybe this was the same trip, I don't remember, but like, they read to like either like children of veterans or something, like.
Yeah, so I think they went to the school and read, and then I think also they were doing work with refugees coming out of, I guess, Afghanistan.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah.
And reading to them.
Very Marshall.
Meghan and Harry both have worked with militaries in the past in terms of helping or supporting where they can. So that definitely speaks to the work that they do. And of course, did Meghan release her book before or after for her fifth house years began? I can't remember.
Before. It was before. Yeah.
Okay.
You know what? This also might be a stretch, but I won't be surprised if like Meghan does kind of get back into like acting, producing, just because it's like, Mars rules that 5th, 10th, and like, she might do more of that this year. I wouldn't be surprised.
All right, let's see what's going on in her solar return chart. So this is starting from her most recent birthday. All right, so Mars, right? So we have Mars in Virgo in her 3rd house natally. And Mars sees Venus, and Mars doesn't see Jupiter or Saturn in this chart because they are out the way in Aquarius. So it's basically a lot of Mars and Venus going on here with some moon stuff.
No, it's giving like contracts, like to produce like content for people just because of the houses that both of those planets rule and both of them coming together in the seventh. Like it feels really loud to me.
So her Venus rules her 4th house and her 11th house through the 3rd.
Yeah. And this is also a Venus return for her as well. I think Venus and Mercury both return to their signs in her chart. So like it's really interesting. I think it's also funny that like the person who is represented by Harry is Mercury, and he's like coming out of his conjunction with the sun. So it's like him getting the new job and the insights that come with getting a new job. But like, you know, a few days prior to this, Mercury was conjoined the sun, but also opposite Saturn. So it's like the tension of having to deal with people scrutinizing you being handed a position by somebody.
And of course, his work is also straddling the lines of mental health and fitness, right? Especially through Better Up. You know, making sure that people are well enough to work. He's talking about people quitting for their own benefit and to do better with themselves. So there is an element of healing and mental fitness coming up through Harry's work in this chart too. And also square to Uranus, doing it with tech or through apps could be a thing too. Or just, you know, talking about a new way of dealing with these things.
You know what else I just realized? Like I could see that Mars conjunct the descendant. Like I'm thinking of the fact that, you know, the 7th house can have to do with like legal opponents, legal matters, and like the 9th house having to do with publishers, like her winning her case against the Daily Mail. And whatever cases she has in the pipeline, I won't be surprised if she wins them.
Yeah.
That's just me though.
I would think it's so interesting. You know, she played a lawyer, her most successful role, and has had so much more, you know, success legally out in the realm. Like, you know, she chose that role, chose her, and she chose that role for a reason. You know. So even as an actress playing a lawyer or a legal aid, she still got the benefit of that part in a lot of ways, I think. Anything else about her solar return chart? A lot of emphasis on family, right? With the North Node down here in the 4th, and also the Gemini moon for both of her kids, because I believe Lily is a Gemini sun and Archie is a Gemini moon. So I do think it's getting a lot of emotional satisfaction through that.
It's the same house, like where her moon is natally in Libra, but it's like a little, it's like a nice little cozy feeling, you know?
And look at the Jupiter in the 12th, technically, like Jupiter being in the 12th, and I see the moon applying. So I'm literally, and the moon rules the 5th. So like recovering from, you know, birthing a child, but also like, I'm going to argue that, you know, getting in a position where another child could happen. That could be wishful thinking on my part.
She's going.
We are getting this baby, man.
Mo's on the baby train. Let's go.
Mo is on the baby train.
I'm on the baby train.
But yeah, I guess the biggest thing that jumps out too is just that the 6th, 12th house axis about like her working really hard and like people behind the scenes trying to kind of undo it, but it doesn't really matter. She just keeps winning.
I would think the sun in the 6th does have some power, especially as a Leo sun, to kind of, and Saturn's also in the 12th, so he's not unhappy there.
That's a very happy Saturn, unfortunately.
Although
So,
retrograde,
you know, there could still probably be some things behind the scenes that are troubling to her.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I would think is that, yeah, there's like still things that are not perfect, but like she's just keeping plugging along, you know?
Because I think Saturn in her chart is the ruler of the 7th and the 8th, right? So I'm not sure if there's any concerns for her marriage per se, but this is a lot of pressure on a young marriage, and it always has been, right? So thankfully, it seems at this point they have come out on the other side stronger together versus, buckling under the pressure of what's been thrown their way. But it's interesting that Harry does speak about the times where he's woken up to her crying, right? Having to comfort her. So it still does have a negative impact to be receiving all of this negativity in such a public way. And it's so relentless. And even though she's winning legally and publicly, it's still, I would think, very difficult for her to be the face of, hate trolls, essentially.
Yeah.
And to know it's coming from your husband's family. That's a lot.
And Saturn also rules that 11th house of like media and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Also, I would think this Neptune square to the moon, maybe even the change in her status, not only as a mother, but now a mother of two. And what that's doing for her in terms of her identity. Anything else about Meghan's chart?
I don't think so.
Oh.
All right, what's next? Their wedding charts. There, that's the solar return. Oh, I lost the chart. Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. So here's their wedding chart.
All these Taurus weddings.
Yeah.
Oh, they really want those marriages to stick, huh?
They tend to. It seems that way, at least. So, what to say about this chart? They are heading into what? Is this their 4th year of marriage they're heading into now?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah.
So heading into a 5th house year in their wedding chart. As
Saturn, baby.
So Saturn is in control for their 5th house.
They're going into a 5th house.
That's what I said.
That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Ah, yes, the 5th house of children and creativity. Like, all right, okay. We'll see. We'll see what pops out, whether it's a baby or a project.
Could be both.
Could be both. Saturn's in control. Who is Saturn talking to? Jupiter right next, or 2 signs away in Scorpio by sextile. Mercury as well, but he's not talking to Mars and not talking to Venus. He does talk to the moon.
Sort of.
Okay, so what does this say about their 5th house? Well, I would say it's fairly strong, right? With Saturn, the ruler of the house, inside the house and in the sign that he enjoys. Pluto is there too. So I do think their creative projects and their children are fairly well off in this chart, I would think.
Yeah, I think there's going to be like a stabilizing effect of anything that they're trying to do involving their children, but also like any creative projects that they want to work on. If anything, like they might be looking for new projects to start up this year, looking for fertile ground to plant roots on. So that's what the vibe is with that first decan of Capricorn.
Well, they still have to produce some episodes for Spotify because they only had the 1 episode last December 2020. People like, where's the new episodes? And then they also have Netflix stuff to work with.
Well, and Saturn's retrograde, so revisiting old projects actually would work for them.
Yeah.
And I know Meghan's working on the show with Netflix, I think, which is the Pearl show. Yeah. She just released a book. Harry's coming out with a book. There's Spotify. And I feel like there's something else I'm missing, but I can't quite remember.
Don't they have a deal with Disney or something to produce for Disney documentaries or something?
Well, I know she did the voiceover work for the Elephant documentary with Disney, but I don't know if they have anything else in the works. I think Harry's involved with some conservation work as well.
Yeah,
so
that's also very first decan of Capricorn, conservation work, and I like that. all that's trining there towards Mercury in this chart, which is the chart ruler. So
Mhm.
them doing more to speak out and like establish a voice through their artistry, through their like productions to speak out about like the topics that are important.
Mhm.
That Mercury gets a pretty direct hit via the eclipses that we have coming up.
Yup.
Mm.
Right, so that April 30th eclipse is going to be landing on their Mercury.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
that should be
it's cool.
interesting.
And then the Venus Jupiter conjunction in Pisces is going to be squaring their Venus.
Mm.
From
Pretty
the
tight.
7th house into the 10th.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so they might
looking at it.
they might come across more contracts to get into.
Mhm.
Yep.
I can definitely see that for them. Because looking at this chart, they're really good at getting a message out into the world, I would say. And also getting funding for that message, whatever that thing might be. They are able to collect a lot of money between the two of them.
Yep.
So I could easily see businesses or organizations wanting to work with them to get their name on there, to get whatever it is they're working on, more funding and attention.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mhm. So that should be pretty cool for them. Anything else? Where's Jupiter going to be? And Jupiter is going to be in their 7th and their 8th this year. So especially when Jupiter goes into the 8th, I would love to know, maybe that's around the time the inheritance stuff starts to come up
You know
across
what?
the
I think it
board.
is because I think in their return chart they get the Aries. They get the Aries Jupiter.
Mhm.
Mm.
I think
So
we're definitely seeing the pattern of sometime April, May-ish, right? Of status changing for a lot of people.
Yep.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Show us the
So
return. I want to see it.
we shall see. We still have a lot of thoughts about whether or not the queen is going to step down, or we said cross over, and that will definitely lead into a lot of this inheritance conversation coming up for them as well. Because cutting Harry or Meghan out, even if they are separate, would not look good on the royal family at all.
No.
It would not. So we'll see what the conversations are like behind the scenes
Mhm.
for them and whether it amounts to anything positive. Because
Woof.
they're also having a nodal square too, because the nodes are squaring the nodes of their wedding chart.
Mm.
So there could be some significant changes around that too.
Yeah. They're also, getting set up for maybe a change in status somewhat.
Mhm.
Not
Well,
as like in your face as William and Kate, but like definitely behind the
There,
scenes more.
like in the background.
Mhm.
that last eclipse we had in Scorpio or Taurus
And Taurus was on the sun of this
was
chart.
on, yeah. So what was
Mm.
happening in November? Is that around the time they had finished up that military trip, roughly? I think
Yeah.
so.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
so,
so-
yeah.
Her coming out in the red dress.
Mhm.
So I think we saw that they've been crowned in a positive fashion with that transit over that sun.
Mhm.
But that's to be expected between the two of them, I think.
Mhm.
Just gonna
So
get
yeah,
louder.
when that eclipse on the Mercury happens, I think definitely notice them in the media.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
We'll see what April and May brings. All right. Anything about this chart? Anything else?
Oh,
All right. Who's next? Did we do a solar return chart for this?
yes.
So 5th house
Mm.
here, Saturn is in control, right?
Oh,
Wait, it's a 5th house here. Oh, okay, cool.
Right?
yeah.
Correct?
Is that a moon in Capricorn I see?
Yes.
Doesn't
Mhm.
Harry have that in his return? I'm pretty sure he did.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So what's Saturn doing? Okay, yeah, no, getting a lot of media attention for their projects is very on the nose. And being pressured to create because that Saturn is squaring the sun.
Wait, what are we looking at?
The return chart.
Yeah,
It's the
but why are we looking
Their
at Saturn?
marriage. Because
Saturn
it's
is,
the time lord.
Mhm.
Saturn's the time lord.
It is? How?
because their
they-
wedding chart is they're heading into their 4th year of marriage, right?
So it's the 5th house year for the
So it's
marriage.
the 5th house year for the marriage.
So the sun?
Sun for the marriage?
Oh no! This is the solar return chart.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm looking
yeah.
at the wrong one.
Sorry.
I'm
was
like, oh,
what?
wait a second.
What?
No,
So
yeah,
confused. I didn't even see it change. I was like, wait, what? What am I looking at?
So Saturn is the ruler of their year
Got it.
for their
Got it.
upcoming anniversary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Saturn sees Jupiter and Venus the most. Mars is not really involved. So, he
The
does
sun,
get some
too.
support. The sun, yeah. The moon, they might be well received publicly. I usually see the moon up by
But
the
they might
ends.
not be comfortable though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like their private life is going to be put like they're going to be forced to come out of their almost, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Though when you see that, it's like another change in status, right?
It is
Yeah. Ugh. I feel bad, but yeah.
because of family.
Yeah.
See that 4th house?
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of things are going to change in spring for the royal family, and it's going to throw everybody into roles they are more or less comfortable with, looking like less in this case.
Yeah. Mars squaring their sun, but also being at the sorry, not Mars, Saturn squaring the sun of this chart, but also like being at the bendings, because at this point Saturn's getting ready to station retrograde. It's
Don't
stationed
remind me.
retrograde, like a week later or something stupid. But it's I feel like they're going to be pushed to create more because they're already like with the North Node being so close to the sun, they're just going to want to churn out content, right? And like maybe secure more deals. But like I feel like Saturn's going to be like, okay, take this to the next level. We want to see more, right? Yeah.
This is very close to my solar return because they got married on my birthday, and I'm just like, oh boy, I don't want to look.
I feel that.
Well, a lot of the charts that we've been looking at across the board is definitely like you said, springtime is going to be a pivotal point for everybody. So yeah,
Pretty dramatic.
Yeah. I don't know.
That money, honey, the second house, 8th house.
But I do think they're going to make good money probably from their ventures, especially if the ruler of the 10th is in the 11th, right?
Yeah, and the ruler of the 2nd is in the 1st. I mean, even if it's a Venus that's not the happiest, like
still get some something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the 2nd house North Node with the sun. So they're probably, if anything, whatever changes happen are probably going to push them even further to become even more financially secure.
Yeah.
For themselves. So they can probably stay away.
What do you guys think about like the ruler of inheritance in this chart being that Mars in Pisces conjunct Neptune in the 12th?
I mean,
you know what?
I mean,
wait, stop. Okay, so Mars is in its own decan in Pisces, right? And Mars is triplicity.
Right.
Like this pocket of Pisces is great for Mars, surprisingly, believe it or not. And what's interesting is that Mars also rules them, which is the ascendant. And it's in that decan of like sacrificing something for like the greater good, the big good, whatever that is. I'm wondering if like they'll forfeit some part of
their inheritance.
Yeah. Or like whatever they're supposed to get from this ordeal just to maintain their independence or like freedom.
I almost feel like the family will try to like lure them back or something,
I've been hearing that recently.
Like a secret deal.
Rumors. Yeah.
Like what if the queen steps back or something happens to her and then it's just Charles and William? Like boring, right? So they may give an offer, right? To like, if you come back, we'll give you this and that, and you can go over here and do this thing. And then they're just like, nah.
Yeah, why would they ever go back?
Yeah,
Absolutely
exactly.
not. Especially
Yeah.
not now. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Not with
Yeah.
2 kids and no. They have set their lives up, and I'm still surprised that their family is so shocked that they were like, actually, we're going to make it by ourselves and be okay.
Mhm. But like, you've seen those articles too, right? That are like, oh, they're leaving the door open for Meghan and Harry. Oh, they can come back if they do XYZ or whatever, right?
Yeah, I've seen them, but now the tables have turned. Where they were chased out, now people are begging them to come back because the PR is so terrible across the pond that they need something sparkly like these two to distract. But at this point, it's not going to work because thankfully they've severed themselves away from that enough that it just doesn't fit.
That's like, doesn't that almost feel like a final cut, Mo?
Yeah, especially because it's that like last. So like, if you want to view Aries as the first sign, like, it's that transition from the last sign to the first sign. So like, yeah, it's like, it's like a final cut being made, and like, Mars and Jupiter are like exchanging signs technically. So it's almost like there's this need to like sever ties with whatever inheritance and like give that up to maintain that freedom that Jupiter and Aries is trying to provide.
Anything else about this chart?
It's going to be a very busy year for them, that's for sure.
I'm excited. I enjoy their work. I can't wait to see what they produce. I think that's it for us. We've gone through these charts. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how all this stuff unfolds for the entire royal family, and what this is going to be not only for the UK but also the US, because now we have an American in the family. So
yeah,
we're going to hear about it whether we want to or not. Yeah. So I do think from all these charts that we've looked at over the part 1 and part 2, significant changes coming to the British royal family.
I think that's one thing we've nailed down. It's like, whoa, big changes.
Times are changing and people are going to respond how they respond, and we are going to witness it as usual. So, any closing words, ladies?
Not really.
Not really.
No.
Well, I guess it's onwards and upwards from this point on, and hopefully 2022 will be nice to everybody involved, including us and everyone who's watching at home.
Yeah.
Be nice.
Cross your fingers, guys.
Cross your fingers, cross your toes, cross your eyes. Everybody gets crossed.
That's like what everyone's asking now in consults. Is like, when is this going to be over? And I'm like,
well,
after that, like, like the worst of the like stuff is over this year, but the fallout has like long-term consequences. So
exactly.
We're all in it to win it. We're doing our best, guys. Just show up and do your best. Right? Everyone's getting a little trial by fire lately. It's not just you. We promise.
We're all going through it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, guys, for hanging out with us and listening to us prattling on about charts and people we don't know. Definitely check us out over on the Twitters and our websites and whatnot, and we'll leave that information for you guys. Comment, let us know what you guys think, subscribe, leave us a like, and we love to continue doing this kind of stuff because it's fun and we're nosy astrologers. So
so we can clip these later when this comes true and put it on our Twitter.
Exactly. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time and have a great 2022.
Bye.
You guys.